Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and it has been an incredible journey over the last 11 plus years. And in so many ways, life, as in music, is this long journey home. And I get a chance today to speak to somebody who has always been interested in increasing the sonic expansion of the music while still making it danceable music. And he started this way back in the bluegrass state of Kentucky, and then eventually moving over into the realm of Cincinnati, where he connected with the Godfather of soul, James Brown. Continued on with the late great Creed Taylor, who, ironically enough, I interviewed 2 times before he left this planet, and
he left us this week, and
he did. And
such a tragedy.
But I must say that it's been a long time coming, and what an honor. David Matthews, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Jake.
You're most welcome, man. Hey, David, can you just talk about the sounds that were around you growing up? I remember when I interviewed a guy you probably played with, Clyde Stubblefield, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
He talked about growing up in Tennessee and hearing the trains and the chugging of the engines. There was this rhythm, natural rhythm, that was already implanted in his head. And I'm always interested with cats that grew up in a more rural time in the South, what those sounds were that were attractive to you.
I don't think I was affected by that particular environment in the same way that Clyde was.
Yeah.
By the way, for anybody who doesn't know, Clyde Stubblefield had the greatest groove that James Brown's records ever and James Brown had some great drummers. Jebo Starks was one of them, but Clyde Stubblefield had almost created the James Brown groove before James did, as far as I can tell.
Wow.
But anyway, I consider it a tremendous lucky honor to have my life have crossed paths with Clyde Stubblefield.
When let's just stay with that for a minute, because Jabo equally was ridiculous, great groove. When did you? I have so tell me about what was going on. Were you taking classical lessons in Kentucky? Was the teacher like demanding that you read the page? I'm just trying to figure out. I'm always interested with people that essentially created new vocabulary in music, which I consider you one of those people. But like, did you already have sounds in your head growing up? I'm just trying to nail down early on what you were hearing in your head.
I don't know if I can answer that.
That's all right, dude. It's kind of an. What? Just you
okay.
can.
Well,
Yeah, you go wherever you want. Yeah.
Let me try. So I grew up in 3 or 4 towns in Kentucky. My father was a Methodist minister, which meant that every 3 years he was moved to a different church. So I was born in Sonora, Kentucky, which had 300 people living in it then, and I think 300 people living in it now. but fortunately, my family left there fairly soon, and I lived in a bunch of little towns in Kentucky. And to tell you the truth, I don't know how much my youth in Kentucky affected what my music turned into when it became mature. When I finally got to high school in Louisville, Kentucky, fortunately, my father pulled some strings and got me into the best music system that existed in Kentucky at that time. So so I fortunately was able to grow up in a real musical uh, 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 lifestyle. Uh, and and then because of my connections in music in Kentucky, I found out about the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, which was the major music school in that area of America. And I applied and got into that. So I spent my entire academic uh, school career uh, in musical areas. When I got out of the conservatory in Cincinnati, then I formed a band, my own band, the Dave Matthews Sextet, which we went to Europe and played in Europe for a couple of years, and then came back and
What was the what?
where
I want to hold on. I want to stop. What was
okay.
so? Um, can you talk about the what year? What was and the instrumentation of the sextet? That's very fascinating. I mean, you had other sextets like Art Farmer, McCoy Tyner, Benny Golson. What was yours predicated on? Was it
Well,
more?
okay. First of all, I in junior high and high school, I played French horn
Wow,
as well as piano.
wow.
So when I formed the Dave Matthews Sextet, it consisted of trumpet, tenor sax, French horn, and trombone. I was the French horn player who doubled on piano. Uh, so and that sextet, we went to Europe in those days. Going to Europe in the summertime is what college students did. So I went. I got a gig on a it was a Holland American Line steamship, and we played our way across to Europe, and then we played around Europe wherever we could. And so I had a really good time with the Dave Matthews Sextet, playing all over Europe.
So that was essentially, you'd say, right around like 61, 62 in that range?
Okay, okay, let's see. I graduated from high school in 60, and went to college and graduated in 64, I guess. So around 65, I was still a college student, is when we went to Europe.
Okay, so I want to go back for a second.
Go ahead.
Did you say you doubled on guitar?
No, I said I doubled on French horn and piano.
French horn and piano. So would you say that the music was, that is very interesting because that was probably one of the most, I mean, they call it the cool jazz period. I don't need to tell you that, but at the same time, you had this incredible conversational trio stuff with Claire Fisher, Gary Peacock, Paul Motion, and Bill Evans. Do you have any? Can you describe the music? Was it bebop? Was it cool jazz? Was it even funky?
Now wait a minute. You're are you confusing me with somebody else with talking about the four guys you just mentioned?
No, no, no. What I'm saying is like at that time,
Right.
peripherally, you listen to
Those
like,
were right. Those
yeah,
were
there
the
was like
cats.
like for the first time you had like you really had like the bass for the first time becoming a conversational instrument. Um, I'm just trying to
Right.
figure out where your sextet fit in because ultimately, I mean, once you connected with James down the road, it was like dance floor funk. But
Right.
I'm
Right.
curious about like where your influences.
Well. Okay. My after Dave Brubeck, in my younger years,
Right.
of course, Bill Evans was my major influence. and uh, and my bass player in Cincinnati, whose name is Michael Moore. He kind of made a little bit of a name for himself.
Wait. You're talking about the cat who played with Miles?
No,
Different Michael Moore.
different Michael Moore.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait a minute. No. I think he recorded one almost unknown CD with Bill Evans. But no, that Michael Moore.
You know who I'm talking about, right? You know who I'm talking about. The other cat.
No, I don't. Mike.
What did Michael Moore wind up going to New York City?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so he played with Jack Wilkins and he played with Bill.
Yes. That's
Yeah,
Michael Moore.
So I'm not saying he recorded with Miles, but I have Rick Marotta said he saw Michael Moore because they had two bass players. It was Harvey Brooks and Michael Moore. He played live with Miles.
That's I don't know about that, but that's
I cannot believe that you and Michael Moore have been connected that long. Go ahead.
Well, when I was in the first year of college in Cincinnati, Michael Moore was, I think, like a 11th grade student and the most talented kid in his school.
Wow.
And very soon he got hooked up with me and my guy. So that Michael Moore was my college roommate and a good friend ever since.
So he was playing upright bass. You were, and continue on with the sextet. Would you say that it was? Were you writing original music?
I was since I was like in seventh grade.
Unbelievable, dude.
In fact, I just remembered the first song I ever wrote when I was probably like 12.
Talk about that.
And the name of it is Dave's Tune.
Oh man, this is so good.
I can sing you the whole song. In fact, I'm thinking about making a big band arrangement of it, just to show my audience here.
Go ahead.
The music I composed when I was 12 years old. So anyway, yes.
Do you want to sing it?
Oh, okay, I sing like my ass, but I'll sing a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bum ba dum ba 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 da. Bum ba dum ba da. Do be do ba da do do da. Do be do da da da. That's Dave.
Dude, that is swinging, man. I could listen to that all day, man.
And I'm shocked even now. I wrote that when I was like 13 years old.
Unbelievable. Holy cow.
It is unbelievable.
You know, just to this is interesting for younger cats who are going to hear this. Can you talk about, and maybe this stuff just fell out of you and came through you. That happens a lot with especially improvisational musicians. But are there, like, for younger cats who are, you know, kind of in a formula trip, maybe playing a lot of cover tunes, but they want to express their own voice or their own material? Was it just a natural thing for you, or are there antecedents that you can point to that can put somebody in the right position to be able to create original music? Or you can just personalize it for yourself. Was it just a totally natural? Like, would you? I don't know. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
I think in my particular case, I think it was just natural. I think, let me see. I can't remember what's the first music that I heard that made me want to be a musician. I think my mother told me that when I was 3 years old, she heard me plinking around. My mother was a piano player and a piano teacher, and we had a piano in the house all the time. So she told me that when I was 3 or 4 years old, I would just plink around on the piano. I had no clue what I was doing. Just somehow those sounds on the piano fascinated me, even as a 4 or 5 year old kid. You know, so I think
I
in
did.
my
No, I do it.
particular,
It's so you know what it is. This is a couple because it was obviously a natural thing for you. Uh, I mean,
it
even
was.
now, you think back to that Dave's tune, and you're like, I wrote that in seventh grade. So there's a little bit of magic and mystery in it. Just a couple things on your childhood. Did you? Your dad was a Methodist minister,
That is
and
correct.
did you? Uh, did you ever get a little bit wily and wander out? I know you moved around to different towns, but did you ever get near a sanctified church? Well, I'm curious, you know what it is? Because like Jabo, when I interviewed Jabo and Clyde, and I'll send you those interviews because you will be dying, you will love them. I
I
mean,
will. I really will love you. Go ahead.
because I mean, they're your brothers. We're all brothers. But the thing is, they talked about these jagged rhythms. There was
Yeah.
no traditional trap set. It was a lot of tambourines, hand clapping, a lot of clapping on three and four, not necessarily on two and four. Like it was, and that's where those grooves emanated from. And I'm just wondering, like, even though you grew up in small towns, and I'm sure that maybe you had some choral singing in the church. Did you ever get that? When was the first time you felt, even though you may not have totally understood it, you felt that spiritual rhythm? Did you ever get to near a sanctified church?
Okay. Okay. In those times, probably even now, the Methodist Church was not part of that rhythmic singing.
Right, right.
In fact, the Methodists kind of sarcastically referred to those churches as the Holy Rollers, which
I totally do, dude. And to me, I would wear that as a badge of honor. But yeah, I know they were looking down
well,
on
but
it.
to the Methodists who called those people the Holy Rollers, it was not a compliment.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah. So okay. So that kind of church music was not in any way part of my upbringing. Uh, I think. Let's see.
Well,
Let's
let me help you because
go ahead.
I'm curious like if in 60 like freshman sophomore year of college at the conservatory, couple of bands. A lot of people don't even really know these cats, but they kind of preceded James Brown. Dyke and the Blazers, Hank Ballard and the Midnighters. When was the first time that you were like, wow, man, that is funky, man? Like, I mean, that is
Uh, okay. I was totally unaware of Hank Ballard and the Moonlighters at that time. Uh, I think what turned me on to let's call it black oriented music was let's see. Uh, I'm not going to be able to. There was hang on a second.
yeah.
There was one tune that immediately changed my whole attitude toward music. Hang on a second.
Whoa, whoa.
I'm not going to pull out what it is. Hang on.
You remember the leader?
Hang on. It was a 12/8 black gospel kind of tune.
Was it Swan Silvertones or something?
No, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pull
And
that
so,
one.
when it
But
comes to you,
anyway,
let me, yeah, let,
all of a sudden, I heard this groove, and I
oh,
said, "Holy fuck! That's it. That's it. It changed my whole life."
oh
So,
my,
and
wait, what
I
year, do you remember, can we get a year on that? Was that college? Was it high school?
it was high school. It was junior high school.
Were now subconsciously or once you heard that, do you feel like you were integrating some kind of rhythm into your original tunes after that? I mean, to me, this is like a magical experience. We were not fully interconnected. You kind of just stumbled onto it maybe through a bleed through station or black oriented radio, whatever it was. But
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
is there a way to articulate how it changed your the aesthetics of your writing after that?
Uh, I'm not sure I can.
I love your honesty, Matthews. I love it, dude. It's
Well,
freaking.
no, no, hang on one second. Let me try to. Let's
By the
see.
way, you don't have to. You can just go where your mind takes you. You don't have to answer the question. I mean, it
I
doesn't.
understand.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm living in Central City, Kentucky, and going into the seventh grade. And let's see, Central City, Kentucky now claims that they are the home of the Everly Brothers. I think that's uh, I think that's kind of a lie because I think the Everly Brothers really were from Drakesville, Kentucky, which was 40 miles away from Central City. Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's a town of a couple hundred people, so nobody's heard of it before. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So here I am in Central City, Kentucky, and my band director. Actually, I had already, as in the late sixth grade, written an arrangement. But my teacher in Middletown, Kentucky, where I lived until we moved to Central City in the seventh grade, taught me some arrangement, something about arranging, and I arranged a concert band version of Jingle Bells or something like that.
Oh,
so when I got
that's great.
so when I got to Central City, I had copied out all the parts, and when I got the first day I was at the rehearsal of the concert, the Central City High School concert band, I passed out these parts, and they played my arrangement of Jingle Bells. So
Wow.
at the age of what 13, I guess I had already written an arrangement which was performed by students, of course, but was actually got performed. So that was the beginning of my career as an arranger.
I mean, this is absolutely such an honor to finally connect with David Matthews, man.
Oh well,
You know, I mean,
thank you, man.
it's true, man. Like I remember. Uh, I'm also just curious about your. This is a question. I've done a few interviews with John McLaughlin, and he talked about, musicians aren't necessarily dancing, but when they're playing, they are dancing in their own body. I mean, everybody has their own inner time feel, and I just, when you came back from the cruise, from the European, the jet, that experience, um, you know, have you always kind of have you just written and been like, this is going to be this is just a creative streak, or have you always sort of kept in mind the idea that you got to be able to sort of tap your foot to it inherently? There's got to be some kind of way for people to dance to it. I guess the argument is that, like, with that word jazz, I mean, we could walk up and down the streets of Cincinnati and ask people what their definition of jazz is and get 20 different answers. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, in some cases, some people would argue that the music became too complex, and that, into the early 70s, people couldn't recognize what the tunes were, and I just
yep,
wonder, like,
yep, yep.
how you always sort of, if you always were sort of, a paramount thing for you is that you had to be able to sort of groove to the tune no matter what. I just wanted you to talk about that danceable quality, and because in today's world, I mean, your tunes have been sampled by so many hip hop artists, but like even my daughters, they are, they have just been pummeled with quantized mechanical computer rhythm, and it's just very straight. It's not. in my
That,
mind, it's not danceable. I just want you to riff on that.
well, that's what's out there now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Uh, I can't dance. I never knew from dancing. Uh,
Yeah, that's all
so, uh, but at a certain point, I probably sixth grade, I started recognizing. I didn't know what to call it, but I started recognizing what a groove was. And uh, by the time I was in the seventh grade, uh, I started recognizing that people, kids, my friends, like to dance to something. I couldn't do it, but I could make the music that they like to dance to.
Wow.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead and dance. I'll play, you dance, and we'll all have fun. Okay, so let's see.
But I just want to be clear. Like, I mean, for people like David Matthews wasn't DJing records. You were like actually making real music for your friends to dance to.
Well, there was no such thing as a DJ back then.
Right.
I mean, the DJ was the guy that played records on the radio.
Exactly.
There was no such thing as what we call a DJ now. No, me and my friends were playing music that we had fun playing.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's just what it was. It was
Exactly. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So and uh,
Was there a moment in your early or even an elder or somebody? Did you ever have an experience where like, David, this is beautiful, but it's way too far out. I can't dance. Like, I'm just curious, like about. I mean, dude, you are like. I mean, dude, the music you made is just the most danceable stuff around, you know. But I'm just wondering if there was ever like a moment where, um, you had a, somebody was like, yeah, this is a little bit too far out, we got to reel it.
okay, okay. Uh, uh, let's see. I didn't really. Oh, okay. I started to say I didn't really care about danceability, but I played in dance bands when I was in junior high and high school. So that was the way we made a couple of bucks. Was you play the high school had their senior hop or whatever you call it, and I was one of the guys who likely would have played at that. So our teachers taught us the songs, the tunes that the dance bands of the time, Benny Goodman and whatever. And so I played those tunes that people danced to because that's how you got paid.
That's right. No, absolutely. It was a gig.
As a 14-year-old kid who played the piano,
Great.
Okay, so then I got to Cincinnati, and this was kind of really what's the word? Serendipitous.
Serendipitous, yeah. Well, your whole career has been like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first year at the Conservatory of Cincinnati, I majored in composition and minored in French horn, and I very soon met a guy who has been like one of my best friends for life, who he also played French horn and he played drums. So in the daytime at school, we play in the orchestras and the wind ensembles and shit. We play French horn, and at night he played drums and I played piano, and we play out in the joints in Cincinnati.
You talking about who we talking about? Jimmy Madison? Who we talking about?
His name is Carmen De Leon.
Carmen De Leon. This is
DELE.
Oh my God, this is legendary.
Pianist.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you recognize his name or you don't
Dude,
know?
he is off. And is he still with us right now?
Yes, he is.
I do not, dude, I need, well, anyway, we'll get to that later. No, his
Okay,
name does
wait.
not ring
Let
a
me, let
bell.
me tell you this. He later on became the resident conductor of the Cincinnati Symphony, and later on the conductor of the I forgot what they call it, the South Ohio
Right. Wow.
something or other. He became a professional conductor, and 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 as a drummer, he had as good a time, time I'm talking about tempo as anybody I've ever met. And when we hooked up, playing in little joints in Cincinnati, both as freshmen students. I played piano, he played drums, and we swung our asses off.
Hold on a minute. Were you, this
And
is
we've been
so, I
friends
mean,
ever since then. Yeah.
were you, was it, it wasn't like organ drum duo. Were you playing duo, just duo gigs?
No, we would have a bass player.
So you like
Uh,
like trio stuff. That is so
trio gigs, and occasionally
unreal, man.
a
Oh my
collision,
God.
mostly trio, and occasionally a horn player
Dude,
would
you guys were
solo.
swinging so hard, man. That is so beautiful.
At
Yeah.
least we thought we were. Well, we probably
All that
were.
matters, man. That's all that
I don't
matters.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I dig. Okay, so you when after the how many years did you do the European cruise liner gig?
Okay, let's see. I think it was 3 years. I think my third year of college, a friend of mine hooked us up, and and we did this. We played our way over to Europe and back on Holland America line. Holland America line had these student cruises where you had to be a legitimate, verifiable college student to be able to go on the cruise. So we were college students, and we were the band on that. So I did this for I think let's see, I think it was 3 years, and then I had made a bunch of connections in Europe. And when I graduated from Cincinnati Conservatory, CCM is known
Yeah,
as Cincinnati
absolutely. Decorated
Conservatory.
school.
Yeah, yeah. So then I took my band, the Dave Matthews Sextet, to I had hooked up with some agencies that handle American bases, and so I took the sextet, and we went over there and stayed together for about 6 months or so. Then the band broke up, but I stayed in Europe for 2 years, I think.
Did you wind
Piano.
up I'm just curious, it just kind of popped into my head, but did you wind up sharing any bills with American acts that would come over?
Uh, Not very. I can't remember, but there were some English acts that came over that performed for the American bases that I did, in fact, accompany them. But I don't think there
Like
was.
I mean, because I
Oh,
mean,
wait a minute. There was one American act. Oh, that I ended up being the music. The guy's name was Buddy Bowser. He was a black.
Buddy, I
Uh,
know that name. I know
you
that
know that
name.
name.
I know
He's
that
a
name.
black. He's a black comic, and
Oh, this is great.
he. Uh, I had this black chick singer in my band. The band broke up, and me and the girl were. I got a. I had a contract with her to pay her money, so the band broke up, and we went to. I got a gig at the NATO base in Naples, where I had performed with the Dave Matthews Sextet. And so she sang, and I played piano, and that lasted. So somebody in Wiesbaden, Germany, heard about this black singer uh, in Naples and called for us to come up and join his show. So this
Oh,
guy's name was Buddy Bowser, and we went up, and the girl's name was Lenora Ross, a black chick singer, and I became the music director for the Buddy Bowser show, and she was the singer, and we did that for like a couple of years in Wiesbaden, Germany.
are you, that is, and what was the condition? Because there were a bunch of cats. I mean, what was the condition of Germany like at that? I mean, they were still in the rebuilding process. It must have been wild to be there at that time.
Uh, I think it had pretty much been. This was like, let me see, 19. Let's see, I came back from Germany in 1968, so this would have been 1966.
Yeah.
Uh, Around that time, well, Germany had pretty much already been rebuilt by the time Lenore and I got to Wiesbaden. Let me see. There was in Wiesbaden was the headquarters for the American bases in Germany at that particular time in history. And there was a big hotel which I never went to, where the American forces headquarters was located in this hotel in Wiesbaden. So I had no connection with the American bases except that I played for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, and you were not the, I mean, just a few names I'm going to throw out there is like
Go ahead.
Don Menza. Uh,
Well, I have no connection with Don Menza except I know who he is. He was I let me see. I think when I got back to Cincinnati, I think the Alboleto Sextet. Have you ever heard of
dude,
Alboleto?
I cannot believe you just dropped. Do you know who was in that band? At least,
I know several people.
well, no, because
Phil,
so a dear,
you
my
know,
dear,
do you know
the
Phil Wilson?
oh, I love, dude. Love that. I have not heard that name in a long time. But dude,
Man, he's a
that.
good friend of mine. Although I haven't seen him in years
Oh
because
no, I mean
he's
this
in
is such a
Boston
beautiful.
now,
No,
working.
there was one guy because Boleto was cooking the groove down. I'm not sure. Yeah, this was a little bit later at the Playboy Club in New Orleans, but my dear uncle Johnny Vidakovich, the drummer, was playing with him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, way. This is like '73. They had this great gig with all these New Orleans musicians. So Boleto was based in Cincinnati, or he was just coming
no, he
through.
was not. He was based in New Orleans always.
Right.
But he no, I first heard Boleto's band in Louisville when I was in high school.
Wow.
And Phil Wilson was the trombone player and piano player in Boleto's band, and somehow we had this jazz workshop shit going in Louisville, all high school kids with a teacher, and Phil Wilson came to our rehearsal and kind of coached us, and that was
Dude,
great.
that is so ridiculous. Dude, what? That was like late 50s, right?
That was yes, late. Let's see.
Like
Uh,
58, 50.
yeah, it was late, when the early 60s, maybe early 60s. Yeah.
That is so Boleto was so the Bowser gig, were you doing like you said he was a comic? Is that what he was?
Yeah, Buddy Bowser was a black comic,
Black
and
comic, yeah, and you were kind of like doing these little
well,
things.
I became the musical director for his show in Germany. After he heard about me and this black chick singer in Naples, and he called for us to come up and join his show, and I became the musical director and arranger for him, and the chick Lenora sang in his show, and so
No, you know that what I'm curious about is like the kind of skills that you had to demonstrate in terms of like, if you made a joke and you had to kind of do like a boom, like to do little interludes, or was there yeah?
no, I didn't have to do that. The drummer, that's
Of course,
the
no, of course,
you know,
yeah.
all I did was organize whatever musical aspects were in his show, which there was a singer and then there was the lead in song coming in where he comes on stage, and the song where he goes off stage, and whatever other musical shit was going on. That was my job. So
I love it. So you get back, you get back to Cincy in '68, and I just remember. Now I know that's kind of your backyard. I just remember talking to the late great and incredible. You might even know him because I think you did work with Bonnie Raitt, Mike Finnegan, unbelievable organ player, keyboard player, came out of Kansas City, Kansas, and
Mike Finnegan. I do not know Mike Finnegan.
He told me because he grew up right on the border. He would just be walking down the street in Cincinnati, and James Brown, no entourage, he'd just be walking on the street. Like King Records was there, and it's like, Bill Doggett was there, and like all these
man, I went back to Cincinnati like 6 or 7 years ago, and me and my wife, we went over to where King Records was.
Right.
And it hasn't been, it closed down years ago. I don't know when. But in fact, I have a photo of me standing right next to the King Record building where I used to go. I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, 8 times a month over there to record James.
Dude, please send me that photo. Please send me that photo. Okay.
Let me make that.
It's okay, dude. Honestly, so you were going to King. You were going to King well before the conservatory, or after you came back in '68. You were going 8 times a month.
Let me see. Okay, it was after. Oh wait. Let me think.
I gotta believe if you were in college, you were probably going down there in the early '60s. I'm not sure if it was.
No, I don't. No, I didn't hook up with James till after I got back from Europe, I think. So while I was in CCM, I had no connection with King Records and James Brown. It was when I got back from Europe.
Please tell me that he walked into a club and saw you swinging your ass. Like, I really need to know how he found you.
Okay, that actually happened. Do you know who Jimmy McGarry was?
Jimmy McGarry? I don't know. You're going into a whole new vector for Jake Feinberg right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jimmy McGarry was the jazz tenor sax player of Cincinnati. Wow. In that time period, which would be 65 to 70, 72, I don't know. But Jimmy McGarry was the top jazz musician in Cincinnati in that time period. Okay, so James, I was playing with Jimmy McGarry's band and enjoying Matt Adams. Do you know Cincinnati at all?
Who? Say again?
Do you know Cincinnati?
Not at all, really. I mean, unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So Mount Adams is like a hill up on the riverside in Cincinnati, which was like the hip area of Cincinnati. All the jazz joints were there.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, so I was playing with Jimmy McGarry's band in a joint in Mount Adams, and James Brown's, I think they call him production coordinator or whatever the fuck that is. His name was Bud Hobgood. Have you heard that name?
How do you spell his last name?
Hobgood. Bud Hobgood. Anyway,
no. Go ahead.
So he was James Brown's production coordinator. Okay, so Hopgood brought James to this club in Mount Adams, where I was playing with Jimmy McGarry, and he heard us play. So, so he said, you guys sound so great. I'd like to record you, but, sometimes guys sound really great in a club. They don't sound so good on tape. So, so I want you to make a demo on tape so we can hear what you sound like on tape. So we set up an appointment, and this band, Jimmy McGarry's band, well, I don't know whose band it was. It kind of became my band. It was called the Sound Museum.
The Sound Museum?
The Sound Museum.
Oh my God, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, that was the name of Jimmy McGarry. Well, once I joined Jimmy McGarry's band, it became, instead of the Jimmy McGarry Quartet, it became the Sound Museum. And I wrote a whole bunch of really unusual jazz kind of shit for that band, which it was one of the hippest bands around.
Hold on a second. First of all, number one, do you have any recordings of that material?
There are recordings. I'm not sure that I have that. I might, but
it's fine, dude. Honestly, I just want to be clear. I want it for history's sake. McGarry was in the band. You were in the band, but who else was Michael Moore at this point in the band?
No, he was not. Michael Moore was never in that band.
Okay.
Grove Mooney. Have you heard that name?
Oh, dude, you are throwing some serious Ohio history. No, I don't.
Okay, Grove Mooney eventually moved to Boston and kind of made a name for himself. He was a extraordinary drummer, and he was the drummer of Jimmy McGarry's Sound Museum. The bass player was named John Young. I don't think he ever went anywhere, but
right.
But it was the hippest band in Cincinnati in those particular times.
Can you talk about when you say Sound Museum? It was the hippest band because it was focused on third stream music, more sort of rock tendencies. When you say Sound Museum, I immediately flash to there was so much incredible music all going on all over the country. But I mean, would you leave the head of the tune and then just break up time and form? What made it the hippest band?
All of those things, mostly. Jimmy McGarry was the hippest bebop tenor sax player around. In fact,
damn man, that's so cool. I don't even know that.
And then when my talent joined up with Jimmy's extraordinary bebop ability, it created a whole different thing. And that's what the Sound Museum became, was Jimmy McGarry's extraordinary virtuosity as a bebop tenor player, mixed with my classical background, funk background, and my different ways of looking at shit, and joining it together with Jimmy McGarry.
That is so. I need to hear some. If we can unearth some of that Sound Museum stuff, that is righteous.
Okay, are you in Cincinnati now?
No, I'm in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, you're in Tucson.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can work on it later. It's fine. I'm kidding. I mean, to me, this is where the rubber meets the road for my show.
Yeah. Well, I found I found a blurb or something on the internet. Somebody in Cincinnati was wandering around a record store, a teeny little record store, and saw some records that nobody had ever heard of, which happened to be Jimmy Harry and my sound museum recording.
Oh, wait. Was it like an unmarked 45 or like it was actual record? Or I mean, this is unbelievable.
It was a record, but it was on some unknown label. I don't really
This
know,
is so
but
crazy. That's so beautiful. That's so
but
beautiful.
if you Google it, it's possible you can find those recording we only recorded in a professional studio one time. I think there's several live recordings at the joint we were playing, which was called New Dillies.
So Brown's musical cat heard you guys and that one studio recording is the one that's floating around.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so Brown heard us, and we went over to King Record Studio in Cincinnati, where James recorded, and to make a recording. Except somebody else had booked the studio to pay for it, so we couldn't use the studio. So we're standing around getting ready to leave. Just then, James Brown called his the manager, Bud Hopgood, and said, "I need an arranger." I found out later on that you know who Pee Wee Ellis is, Alfred Pee Wee Ellis.
Rest in peace, man.
You know who he was, right?
Oh, dude. I mean, the guy was a tight, yeah, yeah.
So Pee Wee and the what had been known as the James Brown Band, which included Pee Wee,
Maceo Parker.
Clyde, uh, that whole old James Brown band.
Fred Wesley.
Fred Wesley.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
had quit James.
Yes, that's right.
A week
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
He had cut their. They were in South Carolina somewhere, and he had cut their salary, which was common. He was always fucking with them, and he had cut their salary, and so they had worked it out. Next time he does this, students will quit. So he quit their salary down somewhere in South Carolina, and they quit on him. Okay, here's James, no band. So he calls Bud Hopgood and says, he says, "Give me a band." So I had been recording like uh, stuff with these two young guys named Bootsy and Catfish.
Oh my God.
Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So I had been doing like recordings with Arthur Prysock and some minor soul artists with them as my rhythm section. And so I knew Bootsy and Catfish, and I forgot the drummer's name. And so Bud Hopgood sent that rhythm section down to South Carolina, and they became the JBs.
Dude, you're blowing my mind right now.
Hey man, I was fucking there.
You were there, dude. I mean, dude, this is so ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't. Hold on a second.
I mean, basically that's the story. So they became the JBs, and they of course knew James's tunes. So they went on. In fact, the story I heard was they got there they flew to somewhere in South Carolina just in time to get to the James Brown show to walk on stage. No rehearsal, no nothing. But so James made up a show on stage. They knew the, Cold Sweat. They knew the song. So he made up a show right then. So then, after that show, he took them to the basement of that theater and rehearsed them for like 8 hours.
Oh my God.
And that became the new James Brown show. Oh, this is a story nobody knows. James had told me to write down for big band the entire James Brown show. So we had played a week at the in Atlantic City at the whatever it is, that big hall. So we had just played a week, and I went around and stood behind Clyde Stubblefield, wrote down the bass drum parts, the snare drum parts. I stood behind what's his name, the bass player, and wrote down all. I had written the entire show down.
Oh, dude, this is mine.
During,
You've never told me.
during
This
this
is the
week,
best story I've ever heard in my life, dude. This is the way.
okay,
Yeah.
during this week at Atlantic City, we're there for a whole week. So every show, I'm standing behind somebody writing down their parts because James had told me to. Okay, so then the next gig is in Nevada, you know.
Yeah, Reno or something.
No, what's the biggest show place out west?
Oh, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next show was in Las Vegas. So I have, as was told, to hire a big band, like 8 brass and 5 saxes in a rhythm section, and rehearsed them with this music that James had told me to write down from his show. So I got this show. We're ready to go. I mean, these cats were swinging. So James shows up after I've rehearsed him for a week. He shows up with his new band, the JBs, and he's got a whole new show.
Oh,
it has
my.
nothing to
Are
do
you-
with
oh.
his old show. So that means so the first 2 or 3 nights they did the new show that he had rehearsed in South Carolina, and I quickly wrote out the big band parts for the big band in Las Vegas. Excuse me. And then we continued on with a big band show and the JBs in Las Vegas.
So how would that? You were out with a band that included, you were breaking down Stubblefield's group bass drum and all that stuff.
Well, no, that I was. James Brown did a week in Atlantic City with the James Brown band, and he told me to write down the show for notes.
Right.
So during that week in Atlantic City, I stood behind Clyde, wrote down his whole drum part. I stood behind Jabbo. I stood behind Fred, whoever it was. I wrote down all of their notes and scored it for big band. And then I rehearsed those notes with the band in Atlantic City. No, in Vegas. But by the time they got to Vegas, they had a new show, so my notes didn't mean anything.
Right. So I just want to be clear. In between the time in Atlantic City and Vegas, those cats in the James Brown band quit the band, and that's when he put the JBs.
Right.
together.
They quit, and that's when Bud Hobgood sent Bootsy and the new band, the JBs, they became, sent them down to South Carolina, and James rehearsed them and trained them. And then when they got to Vegas,
yeah,
it was a whole new band.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh my. Well, I just want to be clear. Going back to so at a certain point, though, even though the studio was booked, the McGarry Matthews group did get in to record at some point. That's how he
Okay.
heard.
Okay. That day that we had planned to record,
Right.
We could not because somebody had booked the studio. But then we booked the studio the next week or whatever it was, and we recorded 5 tunes. Okay, this is interesting enough to tell you. I think he named off 6 tunes he wanted recorded by me, and I guess you call it a studio band. So we recorded them, and he's out on the road, and so like 2 weeks later he comes back, and I get a call from Hobgood, and he says, "James coming in. Can you come to the studio? We'll listen to the tracks that we've recorded." with James there.
Right.
I tell the engineer play the first tune, and he plays the first tune, and James listens about like 10 seconds of it. And says, "Okay, stop. Let me hear the next one." And so the engineer plays the next one, and James listens to like 10 seconds of it. Finally, he's listened to all 6 tunes. He didn't like anything he heard, and it was like so. So then the engineer says, "Mr. Brown, are you aware of this? That in the James Brown community, everybody was called Mr."
No, actually, I'm curious also, before you go, everybody was called Mr.
Yeah, it was like James said that in big business, nobody calls you James; they call you Mr. Brown.
Mr. Yeah, well, and going back to guys like Ellis Marsalis, the father of Wynton, when he knew James, he knew him as Jimmy Brown. Anyway, I don't know if you knew him then, but he was James.
Wynton Marsalis?
No. Ellis, their father, who was a ridiculous piano player.
Ellis Marsalis.
Yeah,
when he was him. Yeah, he was quite a few years before my time. Okay.
Yeah, so when he would cross paths with Brown, he was known as Jimmy Brown. Go ahead though.
Okay,
he had reached a point where everybody was called Mr.
Yeah, well, okay, so at that point, everybody was called Mr. Matthews, Mr. Brown, Mr. Bobbitt. Do you have any idea who Mr. Bobbitt is?
Bob Babbitt?
No.
Bobbitt. Mr. Bobbitt. I don't know Mr.
Bobbitt. Bobbitt. Okay. Charles Bobbitt.
Oh my God.
Was James Brown's manager for like, I don't know, forever. And when James finally stopped going on the road, I can't not call him Mr. Bobbitt. Mr. Bobbitt hooked up something. James had hooked up something with the president of Zaire or one of those African countries, and so Mr. Bobbitt ended up going to Zaire after James totally quit performing, and became like some executive or something.
Oh my God!
The president of Zaire.
Wait, but I just want to be clear. You ran down the you ran down the tunes. He listened to 10 seconds of them and didn't like any.
Okay. So we went down and he didn't like any of them. It was all. He said, "No, let me hear." He says, "Man, I will never forget these words in my life." He said, looked at my face and said, "That ain't hip. That's straight."
Damn.
I will never in my life, and I could feel my career dissolving like
just
this.
Melting. Dude, that is the most iconic. That is iconic. Oh my God.
But then the engineer says, "Mr. Brown, there's in the third tune, there's something in the middle of it that I think you want to hear." So Jim said, "Yeah, let me hear it." So the engineer had hipped himself to the hippest shit that I wrote for James for that session. And when James heard it, he said, "Yeah, that's it."
Dude, it was like the sickest hook. That is with you. It was like some kind of like break or something hook. I don't know what we call it.
I don't know. It was like 8 bars or 16 bars of some really hip. I can't remember now, but it really was hip.
Right, and he didn't hear it because he was cutting everything off.
Because we hadn't gotten that far.
Right, exactly.
We only stopped after 10 seconds. You know.
Right.
So, thank God for me. My whole career is based on this engineer recognizing how hip that stuff in the middle. And
dude, you would have been just playing like sweaty bars for the rest of your life, dude, without that engineer.
Well, that is possible. But
no,
anyway.
I'm kidding. But that was set. At that point, he was like.
James said to me, "That's it." He says, "But let me tell you something. From now on, put the hip shit at the beginning of the tune else probably nobody will ever hear it.
Oh,
And I
oh.
have never forgotten that
Dude, I mean,
the
that's one of the
intro.
greatest stories
The
that I've ever heard in my life.
right, well, the intro I learned. The intro is one of the most important parts of the tune.
Well, and in some ways, why not just get funky right off the bat? Like
That,
why wait? I mean, it's interesting. Also, this is so interesting to me, Brother Matthews, is that um,
that's what they called my father.
Brother Matthews.
Yep, he was a
Dude,
priest.
that man is no, but one thing I wanted to say, this is important just because um, I've talked to enough cats to know that in that period of time, 68, 69, uh, people would say, now Brown was out in front of the pack a little bit, but in terms of the lexicon of music, people would say, hey, let's play a funky blues. Let's play something funky. But there was no word in the lexicon for funk at that point. A lot of people say that word didn't come about till Herbie made his Headhunters album, Slice. I'm just saying, were you using the word, let's play some funk? Or was it like, hey, let's play something funky, some funky blues?
Okay, uh, uh, funky. The word funky, I think, has been used since the 40s and the
Yeah,
50s.
absolutely. That word has been there forever. But as far as
But
like saying,
but
funk music, that wasn't in the
but
lexicon.
the word funk as describing a certain type of music, I think was probably created during James's era.
Now, is there any way for you to remember when someone's like, "Wow, that's funk," and like, I mean, that must have because that's right when you were doing it. That was right at that time when it was like that when that word was being created as a genre. It's why. Do you
Right,
remember? Do you
right.
remember all of a sudden hearing like, "Wow, funk. Okay, this is funk."
Uh, I can't say that I remember
This is yeah,
that,
I mean, yeah, this is the stuff I get
but
hung up on. Yeah.
but all the cats, all the people in my uh, milieu at that particular time talked about funk, uh,
Funk.
especially since since Bootsy and that generation.
That's
Funk
right.
was the demonstrative word of a type of music. Before that, I didn't hear it used that way.
You, in your mind, what is, as somebody who is living it, what does that word, what did that word mean? Now that word gets thrown around like, a dime a dozen. But if
Yeah.
was it just a merging of deep rhythmic? I mean, it was almost like taking that, and I'm not comparing the big band bassy, but like that Freddie Green, that hypnotic rhythm guitar, undulating percussive beat, and then still having like cats that had a vocabulary to blow melody over the top of it. How would you describe when that word started to be floated around? What in your mind? I couldn't ask a better person. What did funk represent musically?
Well, to me, uh, uh, funk is defined by the relationship between the drums and the bass.
Yes.
So when James Brown style funk got created by James, uh, before that style of funky music, which funky music has been around a long time. Blue, it means basically back in the past, it meant blues, funky, the
Sure,
blues.
sure,
But
sure,
but
sure.
funk, in terms of James Brown funk, has to do, in my mind, with the relationship between especially with the bass drum and the snare drum and the bass. So you could just don't, don't go, don't. You get that kind of feel. And uh, also, I read a book. Some guy wrote a book about it was the subject of the book was uh, the African influence in black music in
Yes.
America,
Yes.
and I bought that. I knew I met the author in New York, and I bought the book. I lost it. I really wish I still had that book.
I'm gonna have to look. I know. So but I mean, that the core for David Matthews, the core of it was the syncopated rhythms between the bass and the drums. That was the new vocabulary.
That right, and that before James, that particular language had not been used to my to my knowledge.
Yes, yes.
Ray Charles made some funky records, but James Brown funk is a whole new genre. How the rhythm sections,
Yes,
how the rhythm
absolutely.
sections work, in my mind.
I just want to be clear. When you were up against it in Vegas with the JBs, a whole new band, you had to pull it off pretty quickly. After that, um, were you did you wind up spending a lot of time on the road with Brown as it went talk? Was that sort of the ceiling of the deal about like Brother Matthews has chops, let's keep him on board?
Well, okay. I never was, or I almost never was on the road with James Brown.
Interesting.
Mostly, I was in my apartment in Cincinnati, and he would call up and order arrangements, and I'd write them, and we would go record them.
Wow.
The his on the road. I might have spent 2 weeks of my life on the actual road, which I did, in fact, ride on the bus for like a week here. And
can you just talk about? I do. To me, like, what was that like? That must have been freaking hysterical. I mean, were they driving you to the white part of town? Did you have to stay in a different hotel, or was that? I mean, I know desegregation had already sort of happened, but not in the South. I'm just curious about like those Chitlin circuit tours, man.
Okay, and let's see. Okay, I never stayed in a different hotel than the band did.
I love it.
Let's see.
Would you say that you were you playing like that I don't know if you must be hip to that term, the Chitlin circuit. Were you still playing those kind of places where the floorboards were coming out of the nails were coming out of the floorboards in those, or were you?
Well, no. Basically, when I was out of town, out of Cincinnati, with the James Brown show, it would be like what would happen was I would hire local brass sections to what they call augment the show.
I did.
When Pee Wee and those guys quit, and he got the new band, the JBs with whatever.
Yeah, with Bootsy, Catfish, those guys.
Yeah, but there was 3 horn players who, don't quote me, but were low-level high school level players.
Yeah, well, he was scrambling at that point.
Yeah, and that's why in a big town, he couldn't do a show with those 3 cats. They're very nice cats. I like them. They're friends. But
sure.
But they couldn't play. So when he would do a big town, then he would call me. I would hire an augmentation band of depending on what the budget was, like an 8-piece brass or 6-piece brass and 4 saxes, something like that, whatever. So that was my job. I found contractors all over the country.
No, that's
that
what I
could
want to
call
ask.
up and
That's
say,
what I'm curious about.
on
Like,
January 3rd, I need 8 horns to augment the James Brown show. And so I had contractors all over the country, and that was my job. So
you
and
would,
then I
I'm just
would
like, you,
rehearse.
like,
I would give them the sheet music and rehearse them, and then the rhythm section would show up, and we would rehearse with them, and then James would show up, and we would run it down, and then we'd do the show.
so this is when you were on the bus, though. Like, you would reach out to musicians unions in LA, or when you say contractors, because I mean, there was a deep benches of, in certain cities, deep benches of horn players. Um, but would you call like the musicians union, say, I need, 2 trumpets, 3 saxes, 2 bones?
Well, not the musicians union, but a local contractor who was connected with the musicians union in that town.
I did. I did.
So,
And
so
and this
in
was,
every
yeah.
in every town, there's some guy who everybody knows can get you a band for whatever night you need it. So I ended up finding out who those guys were, and then when I needed a guy on the fourth, I'd call him up to give me 8 brass and 3 saxes on the fourth.
And you were able to do that from the comfort of your own home, or would you say you did that?
Absolutely,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
So that's right.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I could do it on the telephone. Yeah.
Yeah. The landline at that time. The uh um. So, can you talk about? I've interviewed Fred Wesley, interviewed Clyde and Jabo. They're beautiful, beautiful people.
They
Um,
are. They
really,
are.
really, and actually incredible. Like stone, like Fred Wesley's a stone jazz musician. He's a ridiculous player.
Well, I mean, J.J. Johnson is his hero.
Exactly. No, the dude was doing, like, I mean, he
In
was
fact,
like,
hey man, me and Fred used to, when I was out there with James, me and Fred, we used to go when we're off looking for places for jam sessions. you
oh,
know,
dude,
and
this is
he would
this is
play
epic.
like J.J. Johnson. We had a lot of fun searching for jam sessions all over the country.
when so a couple questions. Number one, we are just. Do you think we could do set 2? Not. I just have to go. I got my kids today. I got to do. It's only 9 in the morning here. I got to do some kind of like have a productive day with them. But do you not tomorrow, but on I guess it would be my Monday morning at 8 a.m., which would be your midnight going into Tuesday. Can we do set 2 at that time?
We can wait. Yes, we can do another one or several. Let me see if I can look on my calendar. Today is September 4th. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm talking Japan days.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got nothing at night. The 5th, 6th, 7th. Let me see.
Yeah, so let's do
9th.
How about so I'm talking Japan time. Let's do set 2 midnight of the 6th, meaning it's turning into the 6th. It would be my 8 a.m. on the 5th.
Okay,
in
Japan 6th midnight.
You're heading into the 6th at that time.
Are you talking about the 5th midnight?
So let's see. Yeah, so exactly. We're looking at it would be 8 o'clock. It would be 8 o'clock Pacific time in Tucson, and it would be midnight into going into the sixth. So it'll be the first minutes of a new day on the sixth.
So that's the midnight of the fifth.
Midnight of the fifth, exact. I mean, yeah, exactly. Clock strikes 12:01. It's the sixth. Yeah.
Okay, let me sketch this in on the. So midnight on the fifth.
And that'll be set too. And I just have it. I just wanted to wrap this set up with one final question for you.
Okay.
And that is the guy I kind of started out the intro with this whole thing about things coming full circle. And I started my show April 2011. And my first guest was Pat Martino, and went on to this, that, and the other. One of my first guests was a guy who I actually haven't really spoken to since that time, but he was such a beautiful person and one of the funkiest, nastiest drummers, and an incredible jazz drummer is Jimmy Madison. And I wanted you to, I mean, can you?
Do you know my connection with Jimmy Madison?
Yeah, well, he was the first cat. He was the one that told me about joining forces with you. And then it must have been like 2 years ago, I walk in to this local record shop here in Tucson. They're having record store day, and lo and behold, a reissue of Grodneck Whipper Jenny's there. And I'm just like, oh my. And then, and I'm looking at the back, I'm like, this is the slipperiest, nastiest band I have ever seen. And and like, dude, those records, man, are like the original records are like the cheapest ones, like $300, man. Like the original. It's
$300. Holy shit.
Dude, David, man, every record, we'll get into it later, but I mean, dude, that Grodneck Whipper Jenny record, that can go for $800,000. It's unreal. The breaks on that thing are ridiculous. And you talk to any really great guy, any post bop or funk drummer about Jimmy Madison, and they have nothing but incredible things to say about. and that band was very different than the band that with that incredible bebop player that you were talking about that did the original recording with James. So that record got recorded on People, which is James's label. So I guess at a certain point he was like, Brother Matthews, it's time for you to make. Can you talk about how that album came together? That to me is like the magic of American music.
The Grodneck Whipper Jenny record.
Yes.
Talk about.
Absolutely.
One day James said to me, make me an underground record.
What a great line from Brother James Brown. What did that mean? Like that meant like something that was going to come up from the sewers, like underground funk? Like what would that mean?
Well, at that time, underground was like the hippie movement was starting to affect all sorts of
the psychedelic stuff. Yeah, psychedelia.
Yeah. So I think James wanted to cash in on the psychedelic side of it, and so he had a white guy writing music for him. So he says, "Make me an underground record," is what he said. So I don't know what the fucking underground record was, but as I've listened to this record every once in a while. I think this year even I listened to, and when I consider my influences, which include classical, jazz, and funk, and avant-garde, and you mix that all together and trying to make something that is sellable. That's what the Grodek River Jenny record seems to be.
It is the most haunting, psychedelic, tripped out record. And I'll tell you, somebody who, I mean, everybody's playing their butts off, but Mary Ellen Bell, who, I mean, there's the female vocals on it are the vocal arrangements are stunning.
You've never heard of Mary Ellen Bell, right?
No, no. That's what I was going to say. Who? Because she kills that record.
She lived in Dayton, Ohio, and when she would perform uh, strictly jazz oriented stuff,
Yeah.
people would show up and in awe of her artistry.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and so I uh, uh, there was a pizza chain in Dayton, Ohio, because I can remember. And anyway, the owner of it was a jazz fan, and so occasionally I would go from Cincinnati to Dayton, Ohio, like a 50-minute drive, and play in this pizza joint, jazz and pizza.
Yeah, of course. Spaghetti and jazz, man. Yeah.
And Mike Moore and Jimmy Madison would usually be the rhythm section.
Oh, that warms my heart, dude.
Right.
What a
And
freaking great man.
And Mary Ellen Bell was the kind of the star jazz singer in Dayton at that time. And so whenever we played at this pizza joint, she would sing with us. And, and people would almost like bow down at her artistry. You know, she was
Jeez.
really, really highly respected in Dayton. And so I said, yeah, this chick can really sing. So when it came time to make the Gloria Virginia record, and I needed singers, some songs really needed singing on it. So I called Mary Ellen. So it's just like some really fortunate accident.
Well, no, I wanted to ask you, like, because I mean, it for anybody listening, like, that record takes at least a couple of spins to really begin to get your ears around it, if at all. I mean, it is sophisticated.
That record is
Yeah.
not an easy listening thing, but if you really really listen to it and dig it, so to speak,
Dude, it is so. I just want to be. I want
on
to.
that record.
My final. Yeah.
Huh?
No, my final question for David Matthews in set one, and we might be doing 18 sessions as far as I know, but I just, because obviously it's become a bit of a cult classic. It was reissued. The originals, like I said, are in the hundreds of dollars. At that time when it came out, did it get Did certain tracks get regional radio play? Was it a hit? Did it take off right away?
I think it was pretty much ignored right away.
It was what?
Ignored. I mean,
No, I don't mean that. So it was just
nobody got it. Nobody cared about it. And and the I guess president of King Records in Cincinnati, he left Cincinnati and went to Nashville and became some kind of a record executive. And he really didn't care about that record at all. He just totally ignored it. So I made this record, and like 30 years later, people are saying how great it is, and I'm saying, yay!
But see, that to me is what artistry and creation is about. Because, and the coolest thing is, you were still alive to see the renaissance of it. Like at the time, You know,
I'm lucky. Yep, yep.
because it's like you plant a seed, and I'll just finish on my own little soapbox. But today's world, we're so hyper anxious in art. We plant a seed, we don't even really let it grow. We plant another seed, plant another seed. You can't, like, to me, you planted that seed with Grodeneck Whipper, Jenny, and it was over people's heads. They didn't get it. And yet 30 years later, that thing is turned into a full-fledged tree of funk, man. Like, it has spawned all these different ideas. It's been sampled, it's been played in nightclubs all over the world. And yet it was because it just was allowed to grow. I mean, I don't know. It was, to me, it's wild. I thought maybe one or two tunes might have been picked up, but it was obviously a neglected baby. But thankfully, they didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Somehow it got rediscovered, man. And that, I got to be honest, man. Mary Ellen, man, she kills that record, man.
She really does, man. And she was, I mean, in fact, I didn't quite get it. The the cats in Dayton were all like raving about Mary Ellen,
Yeah, right.
and I didn't quite until I finally really heard her sing. And man, she's good. She's something else.
David Matthews, man, bless you, man. I know it's late. I hope you drift off into a beautiful, funky sleep, and we'll pick this up on Monday evening into Tuesday morning. All right.
Okay, but wait, before we sign off,
Sure.
I just want to say something. You said something. You said something about planting a seed.
Yeah.
I when I first moved to Japan like 12 years ago, I told my wife I want what I want to do with the rest of my life is I want to be the Johnny Appleseed of music of
Yes.
Japan.
Yes.
I want to drop little bits of music all over Japan for the rest of my life, and so I'm calling myself the Johnny Appleseed of music of Japan. So I'm glad you said seed because I'm planting those seeds right now.
Well, we'll dive into that in the next couple of editions. But I just want to say, man, thank you and thank you to Terry Silverlight for putting this together. I hope you had a good time, and I look forward to doing more.
I'm looking forward to the next one. Just let me know when.
Much love. I'll send you an invite later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.